Hey friends, welcome back to Belle's Library. It is Saturday morning, a little after 9 a.m. and I have been planning to do just a reading marathon for myself this weekend. My husband has a 3-day weekend. We have nothing going on. It is the New Year's weekend and we are all just staying home and dorking around. So I have put a challenge to myself to see how much I can read in this 3-day weekend. So my plan is to read as much as I can in between the things that I really do have to do for my family. Some of you don't know, I have 9 children. 7 of them still live at home. I have 2 baby grandchildren. One is just turned a year old and then one is on the way. And right now, my oldest son, his wife, and baby are staying with us, along with our 7 children who are still at home. So right now I have 8 children, a daughter-in-law, a grandbaby, so basically 10 children, my husband, and myself all in this house. So these 24-hour reading marathons that I see people doing, I don't know if that is actually realistic for me. But I'm going to do what I can and just see how much reading I can actually get done in a day when I stay off of social media and don't preoccupy myself with other things. So I'm out here on my porch. It is not too chilly out here. I mean, I think it's only like 28 degrees, but I'm kind of bundled up. I've got my breakfast, I've got my stack of books, my reading journal, my phone, my water bottle, and my goal is to stay out here until 11:30 when I need to go in and make lunch for my family. So I have these 4 books picked out so far for this reading marathon, I guess. I am currently in the middle of Time and Again by Jack Finney, which is a reread for me. I really love this story. And then I am in the middle of, what is this one? Elizabeth Gaskell's Gothic Tales, which I am not enjoying. I've read her before, wasn't a fan, so I thought maybe I'll get the Gothic Tales and I'll like those better than the just, you know, society tales. I'm not liking this so far, but I'm gonna keep going. And then I've got Emily Bronte's poems, which I have been reading from each day, just like a poem. And then I picked up this book for the super tired hours of this day or evening because it's something that was on my shelf that's just kind of like an easy, cozy read that's probably pretty fluffy. I don't really know, but I picked it out for something that I can get through kind of quickly, but also don't have to think too deeply about. So we'll see. That one I'm going to save for later. And I think I'm going to start off this morning by seeing how far I can get through Time and Again. So it is 9:15. I'm going to set my timer for 2 hours, and then I'm going to go in and make chicken pot pie for our Saturday lunch. So it's been about 2.5 hours since I started my little reading marathon. I have gotten a little ways in Time and Again by Jack Finney. This book actually reads pretty slow. For one thing, you have to really be following the story because at some point it makes a big shift. And when you think it shifts, it doesn't. But then it shifts after. So you gotta be paying attention to recognize when the shift comes. So I have enjoyed this time. I spent a little bit of time out here on the porch, then I went into my room, stopped to make some lunch, and here it is. Now I'm gonna eat it, yum, and get back to reading this book. So I don't think I've actually kind of given an introduction for this yet. So basically, Time and Again is a story of a group of people who are doing an experiment. They are trying to perfect time travel, basically. And so they are using the process of hypnosis to see if someone could, by hypnosis, actually physically time travel to another part of history. And so that's what this one guy, Cy Morley, does. He undergoes hypnosis and is transported back to 1882. And he has a couple of things that he is wanting to observe there. And so right now in the story, he has actually made the jump after quite a long time of immersing himself into like a pseudo-Victorian, scenario back here in present time. The book was actually written in 1970 and it was supposed to be present day. And so he spent some time, just acclimating into the best sort of, play scenario that they could come up with. And then he makes the jump and actually time travels. So right now he's there. He is just sort of discovering kind of some similarities and major differences in the society. One part really struck me, and this is the second time actually in the last few months that I have thought about just the different dangers on the streets in Victorian times compared to the dangers on the streets that we face now. And to be quite honest, just on your regular average downtown, or even, New York City where this takes place, just I'm meaning off the freeways, I think it was probably a lot more dangerous in those times than it is now. I was reading in The Fasting Girl, and they were talking about how when motorized or electric trains, I've never lived in this city, but I want to say trolleys, but you know what I'm trying to say, like the streetcars, that's what I'm trying to say. When the streetcars came into use, it was very shocking and scary for the people because they were moving so quickly and they had to get out of the way, and directing traffic and all that was really crazy. And so I just had never really thought about that. But then again here, there's this one passage. He says, "We were at the intersection where Broadway crosses Fifth, and vehicles were pouring from Broadway to join our traffic stream, which was just possible, or to fight their way across it, which was almost impossible. Nearly every vehicle had 4 wheels, and every wheel was wrapped in iron that smashed and rang against the cobbles. Every horse had 4 iron-shod hoofs that did the same, and there was no control whatsoever. Wheels clattered, wood groaned, chains rattled, leather creaked, whips cracked against horseflesh. Men shouted and cursed, and no street I've ever seen of the 20th century made even half that brain-numbing sound." So it is very easy to immerse yourself into this time because this author, his descriptive language is so good, and just his putting himself into that place and imagining that he is the time traveler who has gone back all this time, and the things that he's describing and the way that he's describing that his character Cy Morley is feeling about everything, you can completely put yourself in his place. So I am loving this. I am going through it pretty slowly. Just in that amount of time, I only read a little over 40 pages. So it is a very slow read, but you are thinking about every word. You're stopping to research. I've stopped to look things up. At one point, they talk about the hack line at Central Park, which again, I've never been to New York and don't really know. So I looked that up, and it's basically a line of horse-drawn carriages that take people around the park. Well, here in 1882, he's talking about the hack line, and it says, "They stood waiting, the familiar line of half a dozen horse-drawn hacks along the 59th Street curb beside the park, where they've been ever since. And so I, of course, stopped to look that up to see, are they still there? And I think there's probably more than half a dozen now. But apparently there are all of these horse-drawn carriages that are, you know, on the streets around Central Park and take people for rides. I don't know if it's just through the park or around town, but it makes it sound like it's probably within the park, because what I found was an article from 2019 that talks about how there are people who are very concerned about the welfare of the horses, that they have petitioned and got it so that now the hack lines are inside the park, and so the horses are a little further away from exhaust and from just dangerous traffic kind of darting in and out to spook them. And so but the goal of this group, the special interest group, they are hoping to bring the horses in when it's 90 degrees plus outside, and then eventually to get rid of the horses and the hack line and all that all together. So it sounds like it has been a tradition in New York for 140 years or more. And so I'm very curious about how that's going for those people in current day in New York, and their desire to provide what they think will be a better, you know, experience for these horses, of course. So anyway, that was interesting. There's just a lot of those little bits in here, and I'm sure that if I was familiar with New York, or I was a New Yorker, that this book would just be amazing to me. I think that I would get so much more out of it. It's kind of how I felt when I read Great Gatsby. I'm not from there, and so a lot of the references I wasn't really tracking with. I wasn't tracking with, you know, that part of the nation and the culture of that place. So anyway, I'm loving this book so far. I'm going to eat my lunch because it's probably getting cold, and then I'll be back at it. All right, so it is about 6 p.m. or so, and my little experiment hasn't been terrible, but I am finding that it is very distracting to try to read during the day with a lot of people in my house, but I'm gonna keep trying. So I did get a little bit further in Time and Again. The first mission that Cy was given has been completed. So liking the book so far. Like I said, this is a reread, but it's been whatever that was, 17 or 18 years ago. Anyway, so this is actually coming into the time of day or night that I usually get the most reading time done. Everything is done for the day. All my responsibilities are taken care of, and my kids just kind of go do their own thing and then tell me goodnight, and then, you know. So I'm gonna go in and pick up my book again and see how far I get. My plan is to read all night long. My husband thinks that I'm going to crash by 2 a.m. and I think I'm going to stay awake all night long. So we will see. He's probably right, but I will come back out here, give you guys some updates in a little bit, and we'll see. Maybe I can make it all night long. There's nothing going on tomorrow, so there's no reason why I have to go to sleep. Question is, can I force myself to stay awake? Usually I am asleep by about 2, so I think that's why he gave that time, but I don't know. I think I can do it. It's just what kind of a person will I be tomorrow. We'll see. All right, we'll be back later. Everybody, so it is about 12:30 a.m. and I am the only one up. I am about 100 pages from the end of Time and Again. Really enjoying this story. One of the things that is really standing out to me is how this is a story of time travel. So in the story, the main character travels back to the 1880s, but the story is set in the late 1960s and early 1970s. So there's that whole time travel element, but then for me, reading the book in 2023, there's actually two time travel elements, right? Because although for this main character, the present day is the late 60s, early 70s, that's over 50 years ago for me. So there's this whole time travel aspect for me on two timelines here, right? So I've spent a lot of time researching things that I'm reading about in the book, both things that would have taken place in the main character's present day of late 60s, early 70s, and then also things from the 1880s. So it has been a really fun experience. I'm learning a lot about New York and about Victorians that I just did not know or think of before. So I really enjoyed this book, but I have to say it has to be the slowest moving book I have read in a really long time. I have been reading this book all day long and I still have 100 pages. The book is only 400 pages long. I have had a few normal life distractions, but I usually would get through twice this much or more with these many hours as I've put into reading today. But this book is just very dense. It's a great story. It's not boring. It doesn't drag at all. But it is just packed full of information and just very beautiful language, very well written. And so it's not one of those things you can just sort of, fly through page after page after page without really thinking about it. You've really got to think about every concept that he is putting forth here. One of the themes in the book about time travel is that they need to be very careful not to disturb anything that would cause the future to be different than it already is. And so it does kind of selfishly make you think, like if you put yourself in the main character's shoes, he's starting to build a life in his, place that he time traveled to in the past. And so having to make a decision about maybe not changing events in the past in order to preserve the present. But then on the flip side, as he's starting to form relationships in the past, now it's a concern of, but this is where I am now. This is my life now. And if I don't take the proper, moral steps here in this reality, and even though it may affect future realities, then, there's a whole moral dilemma there that you really got to think about if you ever want to become a time traveler. The imagination of this author is absolutely outstanding. Some of the things that he comes up with are just blowing my mind. At one point in the 1880s, the main character and another person are standing at a shop window and they're looking at ladies' gloves, and they start counting the buttons, and they make a game out of counting the buttons on ladies' gloves that are in the window. That's just one of those very, it's just a unique thing that you can imagine Victorians doing and making a game of it, but not something that we would consciously think of here, right? When we think of Victorians, I don't think a lot of times we go as detailed and as deep as to think of something as simple and everyday as the buttons on their gloves. But what I'm really loving is just as this main character feels feelings, the way this author can write those feelings makes you feel them too. He has a moment where he sees a portion of the Statue of Liberty there in New York, in Madison Square, I think, and waiting to be put up. The rest of it is still on the way, I guess. And so they just displayed like the arm of the Statue of Liberty. And so when he sees it, he just gets so excited. He's just freaking out, very exuberant. But the way that that whole scene is written, you are freaking out and you are exuberant, and you can just feel that excitement and even just a little bit of innocence there. Anyway, I've already gone on and put all the rest of Jack Finney's books on my wish list. I've read several of them, but it has been years. I also did not realize that he was the author of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. When he originally published it in the 50s, it was just called The Body Snatchers, but they've made several adaptations, film adaptations since then. calling it Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So that is this same author. But I have read the sequels to this book and a couple of other short story collections of his, but it has been 15 years or more, so I would love to get my hands on those again. When you look up his books on eBay, first editions are in the thousands of dollars, so he's a well-known, well-beloved author that probably is not too much in print anymore. And so having this copy that I found, which is an illustrated copy, it's the first edition of this publisher's paperback version, and there's lots of illustrations inside. Some of them are actually photographs, you can tell, that were taken during the Victorian times. And then some of them, I'm not sure if they're drawings of the author or if they are other drawings that he found and put in here, but it's illustrated all throughout. It's just such a great story. I'm partially not wanting to be finished, and I'm partially thinking, why in the world have I not finished this book yet? So like I said, it's about 12:30 a.m. I'm gonna stay up a little longer and see if I can finish off this book. Don't think I am going to be able to pull an all-nighter, which is totally fine because I still have 2 days left for my reading binge that I'm going on. Nothing going on tomorrow or Monday, so I'm still going to get a lot of reading in, even if I do decide to go to sleep tonight. But I would at least like to hit, like 2:05 a.m. since my husband doesn't think that I'll stay up past 2. So we'll see. Okay, bye. Hey friends, so it is Sunday afternoon, about, I don't know, 1:32-ish. And I did finish Jack Finney's Time and Again. I finished it this morning. So I ended up falling asleep about 2:30 last night. So I did make it past my husband's prediction, yay me, which was truly actually my most important goal. But I did get some sleep last night and a bunch of stuff going on this morning, but I sat down to finish the last 50 pages or so of Time and Again, and oh, I enjoyed it so much. It was such a great story. I have decided I'm actually going to make a whole video on this one because there's a lot to say about it. So you guys can stay tuned to check that out. Thanks for sticking around on this fun little mom marathon that I have done over these last 24 hours or so. It's been fun just to devote this time to reading. Tonight is New Year's Eve, and all of my kids have plans, my husband has plans, and my plan is to read and watch BookTube. So I'll be back soon with this book recommendation and book review for you guys on Time and Again. All right, have a great day. See you soon. Bye-bye.